Have you started? Okay. Hi, my name is Louise.
And hi, I'm Emma.
And you're listening to Murder or Myth,
the true crime podcast where not everything is true.
The aim of the game is to find out whether the story is actually a murder or if it's just a myth.
Now, let's get started.
In this episode, I'm going to be telling Emma the story of the murder of Ellie Martins. So this story is set in 2011 in Sri Lanka, when a couple, Ellie Martins and Reese Turner, along with three of their friends, Ben Wright, Iona Galanas and Cameron Wheeler, were backpacking that summer.
How many people was that, sorry?
5.
5 altogether?
Yeah. So the group were all from Plymouth and had gone to high school together, except for the girlfriend, Ellie, who Reese had met since and brought on the trip.
Plymouth, England or
Yeah,
America?
They're from England.
Okay.
So the trip had started in Bhutan, had travelled to India, and were now in Sri Lanka, with a plan to finish the trip by returning to India on the 15th of August. Unfortunately, on the 8th of August, the group were almost 2 months into their trip when Ellie was found dead in their hostel. So the 5 had been sharing a room with 3 others. Ellie and Reese were sharing a bed, but Ellie's body was found on top of Cameron's bed with her belongings thrown across the room.
Okay.
So her clothes were dirty and a number of bruises were covering her body, but there was little evidence if this was from an attack or just from like backpacking around the place and like hiking and things like that. So a rape test was also conducted, and there were signs of sexual assault like the bruising and things like that, but it could not fully confirmed if it had been assault. So the cause of death was ruled from multi-drug toxicity, primarily due to anticholinergic stress poisoning. So Reese's DNA, her boyfriend, was found on Cameron's bed and on unused needles that were found in the hostel. So this, along with the accounts from like other group members and text messages, led to the arrest of Reese in Sri Lanka, and he was put on trial for the murder of Ellie Martins.
Okay.
And the trial took place in Sri Lanka. So each member of the group had been sending like texts back and forth to family and friends in the UK, whatever, updating them on their holiday. And so these messages were used in court as evidence because there was like disparity in the stories.
Oh, yeah.
So kind of a summary of the text messages. So Ellie, Iona and Ben spoke of kind of like similar stories and activities in their messages to their family. So they all mentioned sightseeing, like temples and different monuments, the train ride from Kandy to Ella, and visiting the beach, like surfing and swimming.
Yeah.
So that kind of added up and made sense. So Cameron had sent a series of messages to another friend who had decided not to go on the trip from the 1st of August to the 5th. He didn't mention the activities that they had mentioned, but he was speaking about how he didn't feel like Ellie fit into the group. He was kind of ranting about her, how he couldn't see her and Reese's couple, and a couple of derogatory messages about her and like her appearance. So then Reese's messages were also used to his brother, who again didn't mention the other activities. He did mention, however, hiking. He mentioned hating the trip, feeling like Ellie was flirting with the other guys, Ben and Cameron, and he had sent pictures to his brother of a few different days of him on hiking trails, one with a signpost for Bentota in the photo. But yeah, like I said, he didn't mention any of the other group's activities. Okay. So back to Cameron, he also sent photographs to his parents, and one of them had location tags for Bentota. Okay, so in their testimonies, the group also said that they split up and do different things. However, people kind of think the fact that they were together, that they were like planning or scheming something. Oh
yeah, because they were both together in that place and no one else was.
Yeah, but they didn't kind of mention that they were together. It seemed like they were kind of hiding it. So then to their like testimonies, Reese's account tells that him and Cameron had planned a 6-hour hike in Sigiriya for the day on the 8th of August, on the day of her murder. Because of Ellie's asthma, she hadn't been going on the hikes with them, and the rest of the group weren't interested. He said that he told authorities Cameron hadn't been feeling well that morning, and so he went alone on the hike. And he said that Ellie had told him that she and the rest of the group were planning on like visiting local markets and like just hanging around the village for the day.
So Reese went on the hike and Cameron stayed behind.
Cameron stayed behind is what Reese said.
At the hostel.
So Cameron did also say that he hadn't been feeling well that day, but that he also felt bad that him and Reese were always leaving Ellie, and said that Reese should have been staying with her more. So he spent the day in the hostel but left in the late afternoon. He said everyone else was at a local bar and he went to join them. So this was View Bar. So a bartender from View Bar was a witness and said that he had been serving the group for the night, one of whom had ordered the drinks every time. And this turned out to be Ben.
Okay.
So he said the bar was very full, but he described the man as acting a little bit abnormally. And in his witness account, he said that by the end of the night, he suspected that the man could have been spiking the drinks as one of the girls appeared extremely intoxicated in comparison to the rest of the group.
Oh, okay.
And from the other accounts, we know that this is Ellie.
Right, so this is another one of the lads being suspect.
So, no, sorry. That's Ben. So then Iona gave, like, fairly similar accounts to the day that the two of them went off to local markets. But she said that Cameron and Ellie had stayed behind, that her and Ben had gone off.
Okay, yeah.
They both stayed behind in the hostel and joined them later in the evening in the View Bar. They both said that Ellie and Cameron had seemed like they were taking something, Iona and Ben. In particular, Ellie seemed a bit out of it.
Okay.
But they didn't know her, so Iona said, like, she'd never met Ellie before, so she didn't know, like, if this was unusual behaviour, or if that was just, like, fine. So these were all taken into account, and after a 15-day trial, Reese was found guilty by a jury ruling and was sentenced to life in prison, which he's currently serving. Okay. However, people don't necessarily think that it is Reese who did it.
Yeah, and is this in Sri Lanka?
This is in Sri Lanka that he's
serving. Okay.
They think that, like, the evidence towards him is a bit circumstantial and also kind of default to blame the partner.
Yeah, true.
And that some of the evidence pointing towards other members of the group was overlooked too quickly.
Right.
And then a lot of people suspect that Cameron isn't innocent in the case, whether it was a solo act or whether he was, like, acted with Reese.
Mm-hmm.
And Cameron, after the case, left the country and lost contact with a lot of his family and friends, which kind of didn't help the media perception of him, but he was receiving a lot of hate and attention in the UK.
Okay.
So it could have also been the reason he left. And that's the end of my story.
Right. Wow. Lots of detail. Lots of, like, facts in that story. Yeah, so there was, like, 3 possible suspects, and they were just, like, the boyfriend. Why, like, was there anything tying him to? Was he not the one who actually went on the hike?
That's what he said, but it was his DNA and the accounts that was tying him to it.
DNA on needles?
Yeah, on Cameron's bread and on unused needles, which they thought maybe was used to drug her.
Unused needles, so...
Yeah, but I guess he would have thrown away the used needles.
Okay, is it... Okay, yeah, I don't know about drugs, but, like, is it easy to just get needles? Like, well, would you just have needles? I guess you could. Okay, so that, like, got him. Since then, it's like, why was that Ben one acting suspicious? Yeah, and Cameron was there. I mean, it sounds like they all work together, if this is a real story, but I don't know. The name Ellie Martins rings a bell. But after that, I was like, it could be a myth. It's a very detailed myth, though, if it is a myth. Like, a lot went into it. But I'm going to say, just off my first hunch, it's a murder.
It's not a murder, it's a myth.
Wow. Very detailed story.
I wasn't sure if it was, like... do you know what? It's actually so difficult when you're writing a myth to like, think if it ties together in the way that, like...
Yeah.
I'm like... Sometimes the evidence just isn't fully there.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm just not going to write the evidence fully there. But, like, it's just so... Yeah.
Yeah. I think the fact that it's placed, like... I think the fact that it's placed abroad is, like... You know, when they're, like, let's say a group of English students, and then there's, like, you know, dealings with different countries' police, and then, like, things can go awry, and it's just hard to,
like,
police
track
that,
stuff
like, I
down.
guess. Yeah. So, and then as well, there's, like, a lot going on, so you don't know
the details,
how to track it.
Yeah. I had it at the start, I was like, this is the hitchhiker murders. I was like, no, she's gonna know by the name, take it out.
No, yeah, Ellie Martins. I bet you there's
That's
some Martins
really
murder.
interesting.
There's some murder.
Let me just... Sorry,
Martins.
if you can hear the typing in the background. Let me just check if there is.
I think there is.
Okay, so there's nothing, like, about an Ellie, but...
Oh no, like, just the surname Martins.
I mean, it's a pretty common surname. I'm sure there's something. Yeah, there was an Irish...
Molly Martins, is it?
Molly and Thomas Martins. Although it's spelled differently. Okay. So if you could have seen that, maybe.
I mean, I don't know how you spelled it in your story, like.
True. And they were the criminals, I think.
Were they, like, they're Irish American or something?
Yeah, as opposed to the... Yeah, they're
okay,
ex-FBI as opposed to the victim, I guess.
Okay, yeah. I know.
Just a name ringing a bell.
Never go on your hunches again. No, I think it was a very good story, yeah. A lot of detail for a myth. A lot of like things you mightn't think of, but you thought of them.
That was a long one too. It was over 1,000 words.
Yeah, we're on a longer episode today.
I could tell. I was like, she keeps looking at the thing. I was like, how long is it going to be?
No, I just keep an eye on it because usually we're well done by now.
Well done. Okay, well, I guess that's a good time to wrap it up.
A refreshingly long episode for the viewers.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to like and subscribe.
On this week's episode, I didn't correctly guess that Louise's story was in fact a myth.
Find us on all streaming platforms.
Join us next week for another thrilling adventure.
Remember, it's myth until proven murder. Slay.